All right, this week's reviewer of the week is Steph Garrity, and she says, knowledge is power. I love this podcast. I listened to it whenever my pregnancy insomnia was overwhelming, as well as doing housework during the end of my pregnancy. I was going to say, I hope you're not only listening to it when your pregnancy insomnia is overwhelming, but I love the housework one. I am I listen to a podcast as I do housework. It helped empower me to pursue an unmedicated birth, with so many telling me that I wouldn't be able to do it. Ugh, people are so rude. If you're debating taking the MEB birth course, this is a great start. This course and podcast helped my husband support me and understand his essential role in our son's birth. I have to laugh because you said essential role, and I'm like, yes, please use all the keywords, right? It is so true, though. He does have an essential role, and I hope that you guys are really enjoying. I'm really trying to bring on for these birth stories, making sure that we get the dads on here too, because it is just as much, right, the partner doing this with mom as it is the mom being able to work through it comfortably. So thank you so much for leaving that review. Okay, you guys, this week I'm really excited. I have a dear friend, an amazing doula backup as well, like professional experience with me here, that is going to talk to you guys and have a conversation with me about what it looks like to become a doula, as well as how she has, like what her experience is with making inductions go really well. Like, what does a successful induction look like? And I know that that's kind of been a topic of conversation on the podcast. Not only that, but when you guys are messaging me about inductions, and I know I've talked about it recently, but I wanted someone else that can like chit chat a little bit about what this looks like to be successful, and from a doula's perspective, because I think it's a little different, right, than it might look from someone else's perspective. So without further ado, Bonnie, tell us a little bit about you.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Bonnie Baker, and I have been a doula since 2014. And I kind of ended up losing count of the years. And so I was like, well, I don't know. However, just go off of the year that I started, because it's really adding up. Yeah. It's kind of crazy how quickly time flies when you're
having fun
and when people are having babies.
Yes.
So,
doesn't that, like, every couple years when you're like getting that notification or that text message from a previous client, like, I'm pregnant again, are you available? You're like, oh, I have been doing this for a while.
Yeah. In fact, I just attended a three-peat. So
I love
third
it.
Client, yes. The birth of a client for the third time.
Yeah.
You backed me up for her on her first one.
I did?
Yeah, you were there for part of it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I remember then.
That was really
Cool.
special. It was really, really special. And that one went really well. And she opted for induction these last two times.
Wow.
And they were really wonderful, positive experiences. So that kind of ties into this episode that we get to talk about. But yeah, I've been a doula since 2014, and I, in 2019, started my midwifery path, and that was kind of it just kind of happened. It just kind of was this sort of like organic thing that just moved on into this like next phase, and it all was perfect the way that it, just came about. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to wrap that up, my studies up, and take my test in 22.
So for those of you in Northern Utah looking for a midwife in 2022, reach out. Are you attending births right now though too?
Not right now. I'm actually going to have my own baby.
Yes.
So I have two boys, and they are 11 and 13. And then we just have this little surprise caboose that it just gets to be this little family baby that we are so excited to meet and find out who it is. And so this Christmas, we're going to welcome this little person into our family. And then after a stretch, then I'll start doing births again. So
I love it.
Like when the sun is shining,
is
when I'll go back to it. When the weather's pleasant.
I was going to say, so Bonnie and I, and maybe that's kind of like when we get into how to become a doula, right? Or backups or whatever. But Bonnie and I met through doula work. And I always said, because there was a long stretch there, about 4.5 years, where I was trying to get pregnant myself. And I was like, no, if I get pregnant, Bonnie will be my doula, and I didn't end up getting pregnant. But now I'm like, if if I were to get pregnant, Bonnie would be my midwife. And it would be amazing. So seriously, if you guys are Northern Utah and you're listening, I'm going to put all your information in the show notes afterwards. And
awesome.
It would be amazing for people to be able to contact you. So
cool.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. So let us get into a little bit of today's topic, which is, what is a doula? Right? Before we talk about how to become one, what is a doula?
That's like a really great, it's something that I can anticipate people asking me at like a Christmas party, work Christmas party for a spouse or a neighborhood party. So what do you do?
Right.
I'm a doula.
Yeah.
Oh,
you catch babies?
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, I do now. Yeah. So, which I think it's really funny because people just, they have like this like very, very small idea of what a doula is, but they don't really know. And then it always is kind of weird for me to like try to explain to somebody that maybe isn't in this like birthing phase of their life of like what it is that a doula does. But I just have kind of come to the conclusion that a doula is a person that is there to like be with you, to support you, to educate you, and to really like walk alongside you in your plan. And regardless of if that plan stays on the path that you originally chose or if that changes, that doula is there for you.
Yeah.
And supporting you and helping you make it the best experience. I think that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
I guess that there are doulas that probably do things differently, but
sure.
I'm trying to help someone have their best experience.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think that's a perfect description. Yeah. I know that you and I practice our doula work very similarly. And that is whatever you decide to do sounds great. I'm here to help you get all the information, make sure you get informed consent, and then we do the birth the way you want to do it. Yeah. So stand by you, kind of hold your hand. I like that a lot. Tell me a little bit about what you do kind of interview to postpartum. Like what is that? And maybe like a brief, but whatever you feel like you want to add in there.
Sure.
What does that look like for you?
So typically I get most of my inquiries through my website. So if someone, emails me, we chat a little bit about very basics. First of all, if it's a time that I'm available, and then I like to set up an interview. Just make sure that they've had a chance to go through my website, because a lot of times those questions, those very basic questions are already there.
Yeah.
So like, breeze through the website and then let's meet up. And honestly, I feel like the interview process is not so much about answering questions of like certification and experience. It is, but it's about how like your energy clicks.
Yep.
And I think that there can be a doula who's had, 12, 15 years of experience, and a doula who's had 3 years of experience, or brand new, it's their second or third client. And if that energy just feels right, it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You don't have to have like all the whistles and bells to be a good support person, I don't think. So meeting up, chatting, seeing if it's a good fit. And then I usually just tell them to get back to me when they have made their decision or when they've interviewed other people and, whatever that ends up being. And once we've decided to move forward, then I like to just get it on the schedule.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, I live by my calendar. So,
right.
Meeting up with them, depending on when I'm hired. Sometimes I'm hired,
on the spot.
Well, yeah, that happens too. But sometimes I'm hired when they're like 8 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
And other times I'm hired when they're like 37 weeks. Last year I had a client who was like, "Are you still available?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Okay, I'm in labor."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay.
I haven't had one of those yet. That's intense.
I'll head over.
That's awesome.
So we plan, I like to do at least 2 prenatals, and we just kind of go over some questions. I have them fill out some stuff in advance so that I have kind of a heads up if there's something big that we need to make sure that we talk about and save room for in our appointment. And then at our second appointment, I also bring my backup doula. I try to as much as I can. Sometimes babies get in the way, and in that case, they don't come. But my backup usually comes at my second appointment. And in those prenatals, we talk about a lot about expectations, what that client expects from me and what that client expects from the birth partner, if there's anyone else that's going to be there, how I can help support the both of them, because it's not always just about the birthing person. It's also about their partner too. And so I try to get an idea of what that is going to look like, what my role is going to look like. It's different for a lot of people. For that 3-peat client that I was just telling you about, it worked really well for her husband to stay home with the kids. And I met her at the hospital and got that induction going.
Interesting.
And then her husband joined her later after her kids were up and had eaten, and and so I can do that, or I can just come later when things are active. It's whatever the family needs. And then I'm on call from usually, I say, like 37, 38 weeks until baby's born. And that doesn't mean that, like, if a baby was born before that I wouldn't attend. Sure. It just means that I'm not going on vacation. Right. I'm allocating some, holding that space for her and waiting for her call. This last stretch of not having to have my phone with me has been really interesting. Haven't had to be on call, haven't had to have my phone on loud, and that type of stuff has been weird. It's been nice, but I'm not used to it because I've just lived life on call. And then I'm with that family from when they need the support of a doula, and again, that looks different for everyone. Sometimes that means that I'm coming in earlier because that birth partner needs support in supporting that person having the baby, or I'm there because that birth partner doesn't feel comfortable doing as much hands-on support, or doesn't know all of the things that they should be doing. Sure. We talk about it, but it's different once you're in that actual,
it's very true,
go time.
Yep.
And then I'm with them after baby's born. We do some breastfeeding support, getting that baby latched, get them settled, and then I'll, give them some space as a new family, and then follow up postpartum with them. So that's kind of start to finish what I do. Oh, that's a real, I
like it.
Small.
Yeah, a snippet.
Yeah.
A look into it. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we wanted to talk too about how you become a doula. I know, right? Like, we have our babies, maybe we've had a doula or not, but we have this incredible experience and we're like, I need to be supporting other women in this space. So what are kind of the next steps from that thought?
For me, I had actually intended on moving straight into midwifery school. And my husband had just finished school, and I kind of looked at the outline, and we had, just finishing up all of that, like, intense schooling. I just was like, I don't want to do that yet. So I just started doing doula work. I took a training. So in Utah, Melissa Chappell down in Utah County, I took her training and I loved it. And I felt like it was just enough to get the ball rolling. I was able to have clients, a couple clients from there, and I was able to earn a little bit of money and then turn that money back around into more training and just build upon it. So for me, I think that just starting off with a real basic training you don't have to break the bank. You don't have to invest tons of money. You can just start out little bit by little bit. And that's what I did. And I think that works wonderfully. I think that networking and finding other doulas and other, like-minded individuals is probably a must. Yeah. I think that there were probably times in the very beginning when you and I were just starting out that I honestly thought to myself, if Stephanie wasn't so gung-ho, I probably would have fizzled out a little bit.
There was a portion there where you and the other Stephanie kept me hanging on for a minute because I was like, I gotta go. Like, I'm not setting this stuff up right, and I am exhausted. So yes, totally agree. In fact, did you attend births before you took a training? Remind me. Was it your sister's birth or was there, I feel like there was a birth. I could be making that up.
There were like maybe a couple of friends that I attended. But I don't think I did anything like official as a doula. I was just kind of like there as a friend or like as a spectator.
Yeah, right. Well, and same thing. So I kind of like dipped my toe where I remember feeling like I had taken training to become a childbirth educator. And I was like, I think I want to do doula work. So I like put it out there that like I have no training and I would love to attend a birth for free. I will be your support, but I am not like, I have nothing, you know? And I remember thinking too, when I go to support that woman, like I'm going to know what to do because I've had 3 babies myself. Like I know how the body works and all this. And I didn't. And so I showed up. I'm glad I did that one for free, for sure. Luckily she was like, it was a home birth. She had a baby before. She totally knew what she was doing. She was in her zone. I did a little bit of counter pressure on her back. Like it was not a big deal. And she felt supported, felt like it was a good thing for her. And I felt like it was a big training experience for me, right? Because it's not so natural. Just like you're saying, like with the dads, right? Like sometimes you can know things, but then you don't really know. Yeah. And so even though I had these births and stuff before trying to support another woman without any training, without any experience, it was like, I love you and I'm here for you, but I do not know exactly what you need right now. And so I want some more experience. So same thing, I took a training. I will put a link in the show notes for the training that you took. It was through Doula, Doulas of North America, specifically for Melissa Chappell. That way we make sure that we've got that link in there. I'm curious, how did your husband and family feel when you were like, I think I want to be on call with these little kids? I think I want to do this work.
Oh, that was a little bit of like a learning curve for me and for them. And overall, I have a wonderful, supportive husband who just with everything that I'm like, hey, I have this really harebrained scheme. Hear me out. What if I leave to go to earn money at 3 o'clock in the morning?
How do you feel about that?
And I'm gone for 24 hours
and
at a time.
I'm not a stripper. How do you feel about that?
And he just was kind of like, okay, just
love it.
Sure. So at the time with these first few births, and now that I'm thinking about it, I did have my training before I did my first official doula birth. Okay. I had taken that training. It was a scenario where he had taken an internship, or maybe it was a job, and I decided to quit my job that I had been kind of like the breadwinner at, the sole provider, while he was finishing school. And so we flipped. And when he was a stay-at-home parent while he was at school, and I worked, and then we flipped, and I made it like a month. And I was like, turns out I'm not that good at this. Yes. I need something else to do. Yeah. And like, I just remember thinking like, well, the dishes will still be there tomorrow. Like, why do them now? So I just needed something else to like, keep me like
from going insane,
alive, awake, moving. Yep. And I just had like looked, and just like that donut training was like that next weekend or something. Wow. And so I went down and did it. And then, but it was really like at the beginning, I was like, well, I can't go on this hike with my family. Like this client could have a baby.
It's so true.
And so I like missed out on a lot of things.
Right.
Because I didn't know that like you can communicate with these women. Right. Like, hey, are you feeling any twinges? No, you're not? Great. I'm going to go to the zoo. Right. Or whatever, So I was really fortunate that as I was getting set up, I had family and I had friends that kind of like, I threw a Hail Mary and they were like, I can take your kid to preschool. I can watch your kid, I can take care of your little boy. And we made it work. And I think that family support is really, for me, it's really paramount.
Yeah, I agree. So when I started doing this, and my mother-in-law was so kind, right? Because I'm like, that first free birth, right? I'm like, I just want to see how I feel about it. If I have to leave in the middle of the night, can you watch the kids? And we lived with them at this time. Michael was going to school. She's like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll try that, And I did it, and I loved it, but I hadn't taken the training yet. So then I came back a couple months later, and I'm like, so how do you feel, right? But then luckily, that's kind of when networking came up, right? I don't remember exactly if it was like, I saw your cute picture on the Facebook group or whatever, or like how I reached out to you. But I remember like being like,
you
hey.
asked like if there was anybody that would be interested, I think in maybe like a babysitting trade.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Maybe it was something like that.
And then we met at a splash pad.
Let's go meet locally.
Yeah.
And so we did. And you were so cute because you brought, I actually still have that lunch pail. So random as I'm like thinking of this right now. But you brought your little lunch pail and she had like grapes and cheese and like you had all this healthy stuff for your kids. And I'm like, here's a peanut butter and jelly. I think I brought barbecue chips. Like I remember thinking like, I hope this is a good match. Like I hope she likes me, you know?
Wait, did I give you the lunch pail? What is happening
later?
With this
was
pail?
Like years later. I don't know how it was just one of your like, oh, here's some clothes for the kids. Like, here's stuff I'm getting rid of. Do you want this lunch pail? And I still randomly like, as we're talking, I just remember that. It is like up in my pantry right now. Anyway, so. Is it
like an old school one? Like the tin
It had
ones?
flowers. And it was like the one that like went like this.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Anyway, it was insulated.
Okay.
No placentas. Just
no
grapes.
placentas.
Grapes and cheese. So anyways, but we met at the splash pad. I felt like we hit it off. Like, I don't know. It was a really, I don't want to say lucky because I feel like, I don't know. We have a good relationship and it has served us well. And then there was another, I think, because did you have to take, I know you came to my birth class when I was teaching in person, but was that for the Doula certification?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you end up getting certified?
Through Doula, no.
Okay.
There are certifications that I did and then I let lapse and that I certified other things in. And
yeah, same. I ended up not certifying either. There's different reasons for certification and not. And I know I've talked about that before, that just like you mentioned, you can have somebody that's had 15 years experience or somebody that's on their third birth, and it really comes down to personality and all of that. You do have to have some training and skill set. That's part of it.
Yeah.
But I think personality is huge.
So anyways, most of it was that when I was inquiring about where people were getting their inquiries from, everybody was like, I never get anything from that website. So I was like,
right. Well, that was part of it. Like, why am I going to pay money if it's not useful to me?
But the training was invaluable for me.
Training was excellent. Yeah. So anyways, yes, we hooked up, and then it was you and another woman that sat in on my birth course, and then we kind of hooked up together. And if it weren't for Bonnie and this other woman, right? Like I had some marathon births. Like it seemed like any birth I touched for a little while. You even said like, I don't want you touching this birth, right? Like it's too long. They're lasting 2 days. I couldn't put that on my mother-in-law, and she certainly didn't want to do it. And so I had people coming to my house, these lovely other doulas that they were like rotating my kids' childcare so I could get through these births. And that's when we kind of came up with the backup system, right? It was shortly after that, and I was burnt out. Anyway, so maybe, do you want to talk a little bit about how you use backup, what that looks like?
Yeah. So in my like in my contract, it says I think 12 to 14 hours of support. I have the option to call in a backup at that time, but I really try to communicate with my clients that, hey, you know, it depends on when my head hit the pillow, when you call me. And what have we been doing? Yeah. You know, and if I've been able to rest in between. And I also really try to educate them in our prenatals that early labor phase is kind of an intimate time of just really the partner being that person for her.
Right.
If there's something that they need, I'm not going to not go, you know, or, you know, not talk to them. But if it's something that he can provide for her, or that they can provide for the birthing person, that's something that it usually, if we just kind of like give space, give privacy, it moves along, you know? Yeah. So trying to educate about that so that they don't call me in too soon. And there have been times where I've, you know, put a mom to bed and said, I'll sleep on the couch for an hour. And if I wake up and you're still snoozing, I'm going to go. Yeah. And then you call me back when things pick up again. Right. Because I have been there when it's a little bit early and things die down. And that, I think the watch pot that never boils kind of mentality comes into play. Sure. And that they feel like they need to perform. And I don't want them to feel that way because that's tiring for them, you know? So, we came up with like a system of, go through these steps, do these things. And if it's still happening, then, keep in touch with me and we can make a plan for me to head in. So if it's been, 12 to 14 hours and I feel like I need that support, then I will call in my backup doula. I usually, just for their sake, try to have it not be at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
If I've been at it for 24 hours, maybe then, yeah. But and to be quite honest with you, I think that 12 to 14 hours is that language that I use in my contract, but I would say it's closer to 18 to 24 hours before I'll really like give up and be like, okay, fine, I guess I need a nap.
Yeah.
And then have my backup come in. And honestly, when the backup comes in, they're spunky. They've got like fresh energy that they bring to the room. They've got all the, let's do this. Let's try this. Let's, change this position, get in the tub, get out of the tub, whatever. Right. So it's always a good thing too, if the backup does show up when they do, because they just bring in this like renewed energy for the family. And I think that every one of the backup doulas that I've ever worked with that have come in to support the family, I've just been eternally grateful for them. Occasionally I'll get a sandwich out of it too.
Right.
I'll be like, have you eaten? No, I haven't. Like I breezed through all my snacks really early on. That was another thing that I think that a birth that you and I did together, I remember basically eating my weight in graham crackers in the in the food room at the hospital. Like, oh, just eat more
not
of
expect
these.
To be here for 2 days.
Did not expect that.
Yeah. And there's some overlap too, right? If you bring in a backup doula, what does that look like?
Well, we have a nice system where we have an app that we keep notes in. So the backup doula can kind of just like keep an eye on how things are going. And it's just charting, just kind of, like what the progress is for that particular client. And that way, if we do coordinate backup coming in, it's not this huge, like I have to step out in the hall and tell her this big long story, right? She basically can just like pick up where I've left off. And we usually hang out for a few minutes in the room as we make that transition. And because they came to the prenatal, it's not a stranger walking into the birth space,
which is a big deal.
Yeah. And I do try to also pair my backups and my clients like with their personalities. If there's one that just is like really bubbly and outgoing, and there's like a really like shy, intimidated that personality, like they don't, try to make a match.
Right.
So then that way it feels more like a friendly face that's coming in. And then sometimes that means that they're going to just take over and the baby, like they'll be there for the baby's birth and whatever. Other times that means like, I'm just going to go sleep and they'll call me back in.
Yeah.
It kind of just depends on how long I've been awake and what that preference is for the family and what that preference is for that doula backup too.
Yeah. And then you still come to the postpartum care.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We both try to come if possible, if we end up both attending.
Yeah.
But that's kind of based off of schedule. If it doesn't work for that doula's schedule, then it's not a like deal breaker. But
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Talk to me a little bit about advertising. So I think networking is huge.
Yeah.
How do I get clients? And in the beginning, doesn't it feel like I'm never going to have clients?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, geez. Well, for me, I remember at the beginning, I would take my kids to preschool and preschool and kindergarten or first grade or whatever they were at the time. And now they're in like 8th grade and 6th grade. So it's been a minute.
Right.
But I would drop them off and I would have all of my goodie bags in my car, like ready to go, like preschool drop off, head straight into Salt Lake. And I just would like hoof it around all of the different providers' offices, like a little goodie bag of candy and my cards. Like, I'm a doula. Give this out if people are asking. Give my card out if people are asking. You can eat the treats. And I don't know that I really got a ton of traffic from that, honestly. It really came from either other doulas that were booked that didn't have availability, that they referred to me, and then working with those providers, kind of seeing me in action. I think they were like, oh, hey, give me your card. You know, that's how I kind of got those provider referrals. But I would say the biggest way that I got clients and advertising benefit was my website and Google, and not so much on Facebook. I know that that's something that when it comes up in conversation with other doulas, it's interesting to see where they're where they get everything. But that was not the case for me, which was fine because it was less time that I had to be on Facebook typing my stuff in, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it was more through my website, building my website, figuring out SEO, and doing those.
And then word of mouth, right?
Yeah,
like once you have clients, they share with other people. And
And I think that in the beginning I did try to do like a little bit of like an incentive. Like if you, you know, refer somebody to me, I'll give you this or that. And it like also was just medium.
Right.
It wasn't like a huge success or anything, but people were always really willing to refer to me after my clients were always really willing to refer back to me for other people and their friends. And I've actually had this really special experience where I have been the doula for 3 sisters.
That's really neat.
And they've all taken my class too. That was a real honor as well.
That's really neat.
So
that is special. I like that.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
I guess also another place that I get that I get clients from. Another place that I get clients from is from my class.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that when I took your class, I thought this is fun. This is like a good, maybe I was too chatty. Maybe I was too chatty of a observer.
No.
I just remember talking
No, it was
a lot
excellent.
and
no,
just
we're not at all
throwing that in there. But I just was like, hey, this was fun. Like Steph's class was fun to take. And so I just decided that I wanted to teach my own childbirth education class too. So I certified for hypnobabies, and I get a lot of students that way, and I get clients that way that are students in my class, and referrals class that lead to doula. So yeah, I think that maybe having extra services beyond just doula work can kind of lead to more traffic.
Yeah. And the more you can get in front of pregnant women, right? And they get to know you. I think building that relationship prior to asking somebody to be at your birth is, you know, invaluable if you have an opportunity to do that. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah.
I did want to go over costs, but we kind of talked about this before. We're like, I don't really know exactly what it cost me to become a doula. But if you had to guess, what would you say some of the costs are, or maybe like a roundabout what they could be for becoming a doula?
Well, I guess it depends on the training that you take.
Sure.
And I guess factor in inflation and what it was back when I took my training versus now.
Yeah.
But like, I think that you could probably expect, when you consider business cards, website, taking that training, if you had to travel, I think that adds extra to it, you know. But I really feel like you could probably do it for about $1,000 just to start.
Yeah.
If you wanted to add on to that for additional services or become a childbirth educator, you know, that does increase it substantially. But I think that it leads to a lot more opportunity for that income and that exposure.
Well, and I liked what you did. And I was very similar, where you're like, I took those first couple of births and I used that money to put back into more training, more services, more whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. And I remember I had one client, actually she was one of your students, that had hired me for her birth. And I remember telling her, thank you for hiring me. I just want you to know that this is going towards my training to be able to teach. And she was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so glad to be able to help you do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I was always grateful for those early clients that really like supported me and trusted me and then came back.
Right. Yeah. Because you did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of, back to personality and things, but quickly, I did want to mention, like, and I know that this has been like a big thing, you know, especially at least here in Utah and all the conversation and stuff, which is like, don't go offering your births for free, right? Like once you're certified and things. And I mentioned I did with my first, but I mean, no certifications, no nothing. But there is something to that, right? Like when people invest in something, they're more likely to take it seriously, more likely to respect you a little more and your time and your family and things. And so just kind of wanted to throw that out there that depending on what, you know, doula work goes for in your area, to not knock it down so far just to get a first couple clients, because it really can, I don't know, kind of burn you out, maybe cause some rifts even within the doula community, and to charge what you're worth, because you might not feel that way, but what you do is very valuable, and you want somebody that's going to appreciate and respect that value to be one of your clients. So,
100%. Yeah. I remember getting an email from a prospective client that said, and at the time I was charging $300 because that was like the going rate for a brand new doula. For a new doula, $300. Right. And I remember she said, "Why would I hire you who hasn't finished your certification yet for $300 when I can hire a certified, experienced doula for only a little bit more? Like, why won't you, like, is your fee negotiable? Will you, like, you know, go down on your fee for $300?" And having to like pay for childcare, any food and that I was going to eat, any backup, gas, getting there, all of it. $300 barely even covered that. Right. You know?
Totally.
And I don't even remember if I responded.
Well, and to come at someone
sorry,
so
rude.
Yeah.
She wasn't.
Let me really try to lower that because I want to work with you. That sounds like a great idea.
Being nervous. I remember also too being nervous of like, oh man, like, is anybody going to even hire me if I charge $500?
Right.
And I remember walking out of a birth, not that long thereafter, charging someone $500 and being so nervous about it and thinking to myself, I got to raise my price. Yeah. Like, that was not, you know, and every time I increased my rate, I got busier.
Right.
And I think that it, you know, you value yourself more. Right. You are able, it's more sustainable. You're able to continue to do this work that is a lot of work. You know, it's a lot of work. And I think that it also allows you to not have to take so many as well and burn yourself out that way. And just like be gentle to yourself and be gentle for your family. And I was so proud of myself. For my 30th birthday, I took my family to Disney World, and it was all the money that I had made from births. It just was like all me. Like, that's cool. I did that, and I felt so proud of myself for that. And why I felt proud of that money that I had earned versus the money that I had earned, like,
as the breadwinner
at a 9-to-5 job, I don't know. But I was really proud of myself.
Yeah.
I'd done that.
That entrepreneur mode. Like,
there you go.
I did all of this by myself.
That's right.
I love it. Okay. We won't take too much time, but I do want to talk about your best tips and tricks or thoughts behind making an induction successful. And first of all, what that means to you. Because I think we share similar sentiments on what makes it successful or not.
So I think ultimately, and this is whether or not this is an induction or a spontaneous birth, but if you are part of the decision-making process, and I say this to my students, I say this to my clients, I say this to as many people as I can, if you are part of the decision-making process, that helps that your outcome will be positive. Like, you'll have a positive experience if you're part of that decision-making process. Right. And so if there's a scenario where a person knows that the likelihood of an induction is there, you know, sometimes they're out of the blue. Yeah. And it just kind of like hits that person like a ton of bricks, like, oh crap, like I just went in for a regular appointment and now I'm at the hospital. Right. Sometimes that happens, and there's indications that needs to happen, you know, and it surprises them. But if there's a scenario that they think that, okay, like my blood pressure is creeping up, or I have a pre-existing condition, or something that they're watching the baby for. If they know in advance, a lot of women will choose to like do some pumping or something to kind of prime their cervix. And I think that that's great. Like if that's something that those women want to do, that's great. I always try to talk to my clients about a gentle induction. So doing something that will ripen the cervix before moving straight on to Pitocin, or whatever other medication that the provider wants to use. But even to back that up even more, back it up a little bit to the provider. The provider at the very beginning, choosing that provider is going to make it or break it. And if you've got a provider that you know or that you have heard likes to do inductions, does a lot of C-sections, you know that you are already at kind of like an elevated risk for that outcome being an outcome that you experience. So a supportive provider that is on board with a slow, gentle induction. Right. I call it a tuck-in. I tuck my clients in. I'll usually attend the beginning of the induction, get them set up. I call it a tuck-in because most of the time it's at night. Sometimes it's bright and early in the morning too. But you go into these inductions, and especially if it's a first-time mom, or if the cervix is not necessarily ripe, or doesn't meet that score, that Bishop score, that qualification of a successful induction, you've got to get that cervix there. You've got to get that cervix to the point where it can be successful. And that's a lot of hours. Yeah. It's a lot of hours of just hanging out. Right. And that's not a bad thing. I remember thinking to myself, all of the births that I've done that have been really, really long have been at the University of Utah. And like kind of like dreading it. Yeah. And then realizing like they've been incredibly patient with those people, and they have not rushed things. Yeah. And so I was like, that sounded really bad, but actually that's kind of a good thing, because they were patient. But a patient provider, I think, is going to be your first set up for success. Yeah. And then a gentle induction with like whatever cervical ripener that provider, feels like is best. And knowing that you still are part of that decision-making process. So you can say like, hey, I don't feel ready to move straight on to Pitocin. Can I take a break from, now that we've finished up the Foley bulb or whatever, can I have some food first? Can I get in the shower first and then move on to Pitocin? There's really not a reason why a mom wouldn't be able to do something like that. Right. And that just kind of helps keep her in the loop, in charge of her birth experience. And so clear communication with the birth team, I think, is also really important too. A little bit of flexibility. If you're there for an induction and you're telling them that you don't want any Pitocin, I feel like that is getting a little, it kind of makes it hard. Yeah. Just a little bit hard. But sometimes the cervix will just absolutely do what it needs to do without Pitocin. Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. And I think allowing flexibility for that can make that a positive experience too. I agree. Yeah. All right. Before we leave, and I am so glad that you came and want to say a big thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. It's so fun. I plan to have Bonnie back. We have something in the works, right? Yeah. A little secret episode coming. But I also want to give you an opportunity to let everybody know where to find you. I will drop all that information in the show notes. It'll probably go out in the email for this week's episode as well, so that you guys can connect with Bonnie and see what she does. Great. But tell me a little bit about the community that you're involved with. I work as myself as a doula and a childbirth educator, but I also have a group of doulas that I work with. So we're the Davis County Doulas. Nice. And we have been able to really do some amazing community outreach through our cooperative that we are all part of. before COVID kind of slowed that down, we did the Positive Birth Group.
Yes.
Davis County. And that is an opportunity that we have had to be able to provide just some gentle information and education, just, some fun pregnancy support groups, education, whatnot. We've also been able to give back to the community through a program that we have called DCD Cares. And that's where people nominate other families for donated doula support. So kind of circling back when you'd said like, no births for free, right? I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that you can't do this work for free. But, the women that I work with just felt really strongly that we are so lucky to be able to do this work that we do. And we wanted to give back and we wanted to figure out a way to do that. And so we came up with this program that nominates, and it's not even just it's not even like a financial needs based. Some of it is military families. Some of it is, we had a mom who, like all of her children had to spend time in the NICU. Mm-hmm. She'd never had skin to skin before, with her babies, for infertility. And then, sometimes needs like financial needs based as well, but it's nominated by other people. And I think that's what really makes it cool is that their family, their friends were thinking about them. And, that is really special. I love being able to give back in that way. And then most recently we were contacted by the prison, and we have the Prison Project that we are it's just a new initiative, and we are able to go in and educate these pregnant inmates about birth, pregnancy and birth, and, what to expect, and being able to give back to justice-involved women, I think is also a really incredible experience that we're just starting out on.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Okay. So Davis County Doulas, is there a website?
DavisCountyDoulas.com.
Hard to remember. And then on the website, I assume that there's somewhere like DCD Cares if somebody did want to nominate someone that they know locally, right? Okay. And then all of your information as well as the other doulas information will be on there as well, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And what's your personal website?
My personal website is bellissimobirth.com.
Okay. Do you want to spell that?
Yeah. BELLISSIMO birth, BIRTH.
Nice.
.com.
Nice. I'm like in my head, MISSISSI. I'm like, I know there's some S's in there.
Mississippi.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of doubles on that one.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it.